and I was accused of, just for merely trying to bring up the issue of trying to get rid of fishermen in Gloucester. So I understand how difficult it can be to try to deal with these kinds of issues, but maybe that ought to be the focus of what we're trying to deal with here, and that is how to deal with essentially minor complaints on these kinds of levels between neighbors that might exist for a bunch of different issues. It may not be chickens, it may be someone who keeps their garbage in an inappropriate way, or something along those lines, that creating a whole set of regulations to deal with an issue that hasn't been an issue for 400 years in a meaningful way because of one complaint or two complaints seems to be like swatting a fly with a hammer. And maybe that the focus ought to be trying to find a way to deal with minor issues, minor complaints that come up for the Board of Health so that they can deal with them, that deal with a broader range of problems between neighbor issues instead of focusing on this. Because I looked in the regulations today, and I don't think there's anything that prevents me from having goats. I can have a dozen goats on my property, and as long as I, care for them. But I don't want you guys to come up with goat regulations, okay? And so I think that we should focus on trying to find the least intrusive solution to the problem that gets a resolution for the problems that are being created by one or two people without imposing a great burden on the greater community. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to
look at a lot of the surrounding towns, our sister cities, that have no regulations on this. And once again, the way I found out about it was actually through a conversation with you, Jason, in Sapathia, and I caught a glimpse of it on Facebook and went wild with it.
Can I just ask you, what is it that you found out about? See, that's the confusing
about
part.
that they were trying to regulate the chickens in the city.
They meaning us.
Wherever this was.
But I don't think that's what I think. We're just glancing at
Right.
regulations.
Well, it's going to start someplace, correct? Okay, so if nobody comes and voices their concerns, then you can do whatever you want.
Correct.
But if you understand that everybody is concerned about it, then you might have to put some input into this, and find out what the citizens are for and are against. Or otherwise, you could just keep passing meetings and do whatever you want to do and get from there, correct?
No, because we do have, we are mandated to have a public, we don't just make regulations.
But if the
without a
public isn't
hearing.
aware of what's going on.
Everything is posted, but there's a whole
Yeah, but
procedure.
do you know how much stuff is posted here and there and a lot of people
Okay.
don't know about it? I mean, they don't. So that's why I brought it to Facebook. And as you can
Sure.
see, bringing it to Facebook has brought everybody out. I mean, a lot of people just didn't know what was happening in the city. A lot of people take it for granted. I mean, it took me forever to look for regulations on the city websites. It's very confusing. I'm not a smart person, and it took me a while to figure it all out. I mean, and a lot of other people need to understand. And I kind of break it down with a little bit of humor involved as well with my Facebook posts and things like that. But it's a serious matter. The chickens have been here forever. And actually in 1937, the mayor of the city, who was a Babson, had a chicken farm. Okay, there was a lot of history here. The city of Boston allows you to have chickens. They do have a little bit of a restriction. Most of the towns don't like the roosters or the cock. They are just, too noisy, too loud with all the variations on that. But I mean, the city of Boston does that. The city of Salem just went through this fight, and the citizens won with no regulations on their chickens. So I, for one, would like to be involved in this process somehow if I could. You have my information, and if there's anything I can do to get the word out. I'm not pro and I'm not con. I don't own chickens, but I do have 157 friends that do. And that's a lot for this little town.
Go,
I think it's important to understand that this, first of all, is not something we came up with. It was brought to us. And that
Where is she now?
we're not anti-chicken, we're just looking to be pro-health.
I just
And
have,
and if there's no health issues, then it's not going to be done.
I just have one more question. How did this all come about? There was a complaint brought to you by somebody about something. Is there any documentation of what that was about? how did
The
this
issue-
all,
the
I mean, the
issue-
chickens have been here, like people have been saying, for over 400 years. There wasn't an issue. All of a sudden now there's an issue. Where did that issue stem from?
The issue was brought to us by one of the city councilors who said.
Who was that?
Melissa Cox.
Melissa Cox. Okay.
Yeah.
Who's not here anymore.
But she just told us that, who had a constituent bring this issue to her in terms of noise. She was looking for regulations and thought, was told that it would be something the health department might look at, for the Board of Health, I'm sorry, not the health department, Board of Health, and that's how it came to us.
So it was
We
due
have
to a
not-
noise complaint.
I'm not sure, I believe it was, but I can't swear to that, I don't.
Is there a way to find out what that was for the
Yeah,
next
if I
meeting?
could just interject for a second.
Yeah, sure.
There was an issue where actually the owners, as far as I know, weren't keeping very good care. A couple of chickens actually been hit on the street. That was one issue. It's also not the only issue that we've ever received, or the concern that we've received. We've received complaints, honestly, not that often, but maybe 5-6 times a year. One of the things that we do get quite often is well-intentioned people who want, and again, I'm not against it either, I'm all for it actually. However, we get a lot of people coming to our department that are looking for, hey, I want chickens, what do I do now? What do I need to do for you people to make sure I'm doing it right and safe? And we have nothing in place to be able to give them that says, here's what you need to do. So the question is, do you start with regulations? Is it an education outreach campaign? You know, but that's what the ad hoc committee is going to be looking at.
Okay. I mean, if it was a noise complaint, maybe the chickens, but there's also the wild turkey population, there's also the coyote population in town. There's a
Why
lot
don't
of
we let
things.
someone, I
Seagulls.
understand that.
That's why I'd like to be involved in this.
That's fine.
Cats should be
Great.
registered.
Is there anyone else who would like to say anything at this point?
I would. Oh,
Why don't you? Go ahead.
I'll stand right here.
No, you
Okay.
have to come up here. It's on the record. And give us your name.
My name is Mary Ann Albert Bouchard. I'm at 93 Mount Pleasant Avenue. I have no chickens. I've never had chickens. But I cannot believe that I am here dealing with a chicken issue when I spent 2.5 years trying to get the Board of Health to deal with a leaking gas issue, which my 3.5-year-old granddaughter is suffering serious respiratory issues. I'm sitting here arguing about chickens, and you people are spending more time about chickens than dealing with a child who's very sick because of leaking gas. And nobody would help me. Nobody. I go into the